Greetings, all. It's Max, and we're back, and we're going to do a little bit of a Bible study here on Hebrews 11. Why that? Because there's a little bit of an idea here with dispensations being about salvation, and I disagree with that. So, I'm going to go to Hebrews 11 as my proof text. Okay? So, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about faith alone. Once saved, always saved. All right? Now, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Well, people who see God can't have faith in God. But what did God tell them? That's what they had faith in. This is where dispensations come in, is where God dispenses information to people and they have faith in it, even though they're looking at God. For by it the elders obtained a good report. Through faith, we understand that the worlds were framed by the Word of God, Jesus, so that things which are seen were not made of things which do appear. By faith, Abel offered unto God a more excellent sacrifice than Cain, by which he obtained witness that he was righteous, God testifying of his gifts, and by it being dead yet speaketh. And by faith, Enoch. Now, we're in Old Testament now. Okay? Some people want to make a dispensational break and people were saved a different way in the Old Testament. The Bible is telling you different right here. Okay? By faith, Enoch was translated. Oh, he was raptured. Uh-oh. That he should not see death, and was not found, because God had translated him. For before his translation he had this testimony that pleased God. And I don't see Enoch working. Unless you call a testimony a work. Verse 6, but without faith is it impossible to please him. There we are. For he cometh to God, must believe that he is, and that he answers a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. By faith Noah, being warned of God, of things not seen as yet, moved with fear, prepared an ark, to the saving of his house, by which he condemned the world and became heir of the righteous, which is by faith. See, the guy prepared an ark for his physical salvation. Doesn't mean that he wasn't telling other people, like, hey, the world's going to end. Do you want to get on this ark? And nobody wanted to listen to him. By faith, Abraham, when he was called out to go into a place which he should after receive for inheritance, obeyed and went out, not knowing whither he went. He had no idea. He already had a good life. Abraham was a pretty rich guy. He already had a lot of stuff. And he was like, God came down to him and said, no, you need to go over here. And Abraham just packed up his stuff and left. And you can call that, was that for Abraham's salvation? I don't think so. I think Abraham was saved when he believed. And he did those works because you have God standing right there. By faith he sojourned in the lands of promise, as in a strange country, dwelling in tabernacles with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. For he looked to a city which faith hath foundations, whose builder and maker is God. Through faith also Sarah, through faith, herself conceived the strength to conceive a seed, and Sarah is like 100 years old. I'm not seeing works anywhere in here. Okay? And was delivered a child when she was past age, because she judged him faithful who had promised. God is telling you right here, she even, I think she was barren all of her life, but God is telling you that she is past age, meaning, no, can't have kids. God gave her Isaac through faith. What did she do? What did Sarah do? Therefore sprang there even one, and him, as good as dead, so by many of the stars of the sky in multitude, and as by sand which is by the sea more innumerable. Christians, these all died in faith, not having received the promises, but having seen them far off. This is where we get this idea of looking forward to the cross. I'm looking forward to the cross. No. It was what God told them, and that's what they're looking for. The object of people's faith changes over dispensations. That is it. Not about their salvation. And were persuaded of them, and embraced them, and confessed that they were strangers and pilgrims on the earth. For they that say such things declare plainly that they seek a country. And truly, if they had been mindful of that country from whence they came out, they might have had opportunity to have returned. But now they desire a better country. Faith. They had a good life where they were at, and they believed God and said, you need to go over here. I'm going to give you all this land. And they believed him. That is, and heavenly. Wherefore God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he hath prepared them a city. And they didn't know about the heavenly city back then. They literally, God came to Abraham and was like, yo, you have to do this. And Abraham's like, all right, that's what I'm doing. By faith, Abraham, when he was tried, offered up Isaac, and that had received the promises, offered up his only begotten son, of whom it was said that Isaac shall thy seed be called, accounting that God was able to raise him up even from the dead, from whence also he received him in a figure. By faith, Isaac blessed Jacob. See, unless you call a blessing a work, here it's all by faith. Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau concerning things to come. Are you going to call a blessing a work? No. It says right here, plainly, by faith. By faith, Jacob, when he was dying, blessed both the sons of Joseph and worshipped, leaning upon the top of his staff. By faith, Joseph, when he died, made mention of the departing of the children of Israel, and gave a commandment concerning his bones. Oh man, here we go. Here's where a lot of people who are faith works. In the Old Testament, we want to go to Moses. By faith, Moses, when he was born, was hid 3 months of his parents because they saw he was a proper child. Well, whose faith was that? Okay? Whose faith in verse 23 is that? Moses is a child. He was a couple of months old. It was his parents' faith that sanctified him. His parents. And they were not afraid of the king's commandment. All right. Now, Moses is older now. By faith, Moses, when he was come to years, after he grew up, refused to be called the son of the Pharaoh's daughter. So he's doing a work by refusing to be called the son of the Pharaoh's daughter, but it was by faith alone. Choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season. The guy was a prince. He was an Egyptian prince. Esteeming the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasures in Egypt, for he had respect unto the recompense of the reward. By faith he forsook Egypt, the people who raised him. He was raised in, like, people say, want to covet after Hollywood actors or people who have like millions of dollars. He didn't really earn it. Whatever. This guy was like, no, I'm going to believe my heritage. I'm going to believe that. I'm going to leave it all behind. He did that by faith. Not fearing the wrath of the king, for he endured, as seeing him who is invisible. Through faith he kept the Passover, and the sprinkling of blood, lest he that destroyed the firstborn should touch them. By faith they passed through the Red Sea by dry land, which as the Egyptians assaying to do were drowned. By faith the walls of Jericho fell down, after they were compassed about 7 days. So now we're going on to Joshua. I don't see anything about works here. All I see is faith. The entire chapter. By faith the harlot Rahab perished not with them that believed not, and when she had received the spies with peace. And what shall I more say? For the time would fail me to tell of Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, of David also, and Samuel, and of the prophets, who through faith subdued kingdoms, wrought righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, out of weakness were made strong, waxed valiant in fight, turned to fight the armies of the aliens. And this has to be space aliens. Throw that in there. Where? Women received their dead raised to life again, and others were tortured, not accepting deliverance, that they might obtain a better resurrection. Martyrs, that's what that is. And others had trial of cruel mockings and scourgings, yea, moreover, of bonds and imprisonment. They were stoned, they were sawn asunder, they were tempted, they were slain with the sword. They wandered about in sheepskins and goatskins, being destitute, afflicted, and tormented, of whom the world was not worthy. They wandered in deserts, in mountains, in dens, and caves in the earth. And these all, having obtained good report through faith, received not the promise, as they weren't doing the works. That's why they didn't get the promise. God having provided some better thing for us, that they without us should not be made perfect. So, my idea here, what I roll with, is that salvation has always been by faith. And Hebrews 11 is all faith. And you come to the end, and it says, well, they weren't doing what I told them to do, so I'm going to mess with them. And all these, having obtained good report through faith, they received not the promise, because they weren't doing the works. They didn't get blessing. And a bigger question is, if it was a works faith salvation system back when Abraham was around or something, if it was a faith work system, what happens to the Gentiles? Because they don't know anything about works. They don't know anything about that. I believe that people were saved according to their own understanding. If they never heard anything about God the Father at all back in this time, if they never heard anything about that or didn't know anything about Judaism, I think it was pretty much according to their own understanding the people were saved. And if you say that it's a faith works system, well, how did these people figure out the works? You'd have to talk to the Jews. And so you're kind of saying that only the Jews were saved. Only the Jews were saved. And we're going to go way back. Okay, I understand this is Hebrews, New Testament, and talking to Jews, but whatever. I'm going to go way back. Isaiah 64:6. But we are all as unclean thing, and all our righteousness are filthy rags. And we all do fade as a leaf, and our iniquities, like the wind, have taken us away. This is Old Testament. This is about as old in the Old Testament as you can get. And he's saying your works are trash. He's saying your works are trash. So how you can bring salvation in and make it a dispensational issue, I don't get it. I don't get it, and I don't agree with it. Now, going off into the future and Revelation and Millennial Kingdom, yeah, I can kind of get that. But not in the Old Testament. I don't see it. So that's what we have. And with that, we're out of here.